Thank you for putting the recording on. So this is, how do I take this off? Oh, got it. Okay, got it. So this training number 3, session number 3, is about individual educational programs, also known as IEPs. Now, let me, excuse me, just trying to get over this semi-cold. So let me kind of clarify, because over the years, and I'm kind of chuckling and laughing because I get when parents call me, they say that they have an IEP, and I know what they mean. And the Spanish-speaking parents also say tenemos un IEP, and sometimes we mix and match, but actually IEP means individual educational program. But when we go to an individual educational program meeting, we review a document that they also call IEP. So we call it individual educational plan. And that's why when parents and people say, well, yeah, my child is under an IEP. So yeah, he has an individual educational program. But in order to get that program implemented and developed, you have to produce that document, which is also called individual educational plan. So, once in a while we'll hear that, and we'll hear where that terminology is misplaced, and that's fine. Over the years, I know what they mean. I know what they're trying to say. But I just wanted to make it clear that, Alfonso, can you admit Gracie?
She's joining.
She rejoined again. Okay, thank you. I'm not seeing that you're admitting her in the blue.
It says joining here. I already admitted her.
Oh,
Wait to wait longer.
she may have dropped off and come back. Okay, you work on it. I'm gonna go ahead and click it. Okay, sorry about that. And I was supposed to get a crash course training this week, but we've been so busy that wasn't able to happen. Okay, so again, to review, let's take a look at some of the terminology that we've already kind of looked at, but I want to make sure that if we do go over some of these things, we know what they mean. So we know what IDEA means. That's the law, right? So it's Individuals with Disabilities Educational Act. This is the title of the federal law that establishes the educational benefits and services to which students are entitled and for which local education agencies are responsible. IEP, Individual Educational Program. The IEP describes the plan for the student's educational program, including current performance levels, student goals, and the educational placement and other services the student will receive. Sometimes we'll hear the term LEA. It is the local educational agency. And bless you, in most cases, this term refers to a local school district, but the LEAs also include county offices of education, special education local plan areas, and charter schools. So in particular for us working in Madera, this applies. The LEA is the county office, but it also could mean Madera Unified School District, because Madera is a little unique in the sense that they have their own SALPA, Special Education Local Plan Agency. It's the one that the umbrella of all the special ed in Madera County. So I wanted to make sure that we threw out those terms so that in case if we go over them today, it will happen. So admit that one that's coming up. Okay, so here we go. The combination of the concepts of educational benefit and reasonable calculation provides a general guideline for LEAs in determining an appropriate level of service for students with disabilities. Students are entitled to receive specialized instruction and related services. And the reason I highlighted that in red is because we'll be talking about specialized instruction, but also related services. It's something that almost always is forgotten to talk about, and it is in the IEP document that allow the student to make reasonable progress toward educational goals based on the needs and strengths of the student. The IEP team's decision excuse me, as to the types of instruction and services the student receives are to be reasonably calculated to result in an appropriate level of academic success for the student, including, when appropriate, achieving passing marks and advancing from grade to grade. I wanted to throw that in there because it's some of the descriptors of what we're going to talk about. Educational benefit is one, reasonably calculation is another one that on the ground, when we're looking at IEPs, we're going to need to remember, educational benefit and reasonably calculation, because, okay, so here's the idea, is the IEP document should be put together and it should provide educational benefit, but it should be reasonably calculated. So those are terms that more and more we're going to be looking at on the ground. You'll be hearing me discuss that at the IEP meetings. And so I wanted to make sure I kind of had that on there. So, excuse me, to meet the educational benefit expectations, the IEP team needs to keep two important points in mind. The elements of students' IEP work together towards the objective of ensuring that the student will have an opportunity to progress academically, and the combination of the student's instructional placement, here it is again, and related services all contribute to that outcome. And the IEP addresses the specific needs and current levels of performance of the student and sets appropriate performance goals based on the student's current circumstances. Hold on really quick. Sorry, it was an important call. One of my daughters. Okay, so the IEP addresses the specific needs and current levels of performance of the student and sets appropriate performance goals based on the student's current circumstances that will demonstrate that the student is receiving sufficient support to progress toward annual goals. Okay, we got through that. Excuse me. All right, so individual educational programs. We're still with that topic, but before we actually get into the IEP and the plan, I need to tell you about the team, individualized education program team. Something we hardly ever go over as well, but we need to be aware that the team needs to has to have certain components. The team means a group of individuals composed of one, small I, the parents of a child with a disability, we know that. Two, or double I, not less than one regular education teacher of such child, if the child is or may be participating in a regular educational environment. And I almost always tell the parents, or when they spring it on us in the meeting, to excusal of the general education teacher. I always tell parents, if they say that, say no, because the child, yes, is maybe in a special education program with RSP push in or pull out, or maybe in an SDC program, a special day class program, where they don't have access to the gen ed teacher. But we would always like to know, how could we get okay, how can the teacher, the general education teacher, contribute to if the child eventually moves from SDC to gen ed with supports? So we want to have some input from a regular education teacher. And almost always I see that excusal in part or in whole. And when I look at that document before I've been involved, I say, okay, that was a big mistake, because we want to know from that teacher, who would you implement to help this student? And they're going to have some recommendations. So, excuse me, I always tell parents, no, if they're not going to have the special ed teacher, I mean, the regular education teacher, maybe we need to reschedule till we have one there. Some of the others, it's possible just to not have them, because they'll say they submitted a written report, and that's fine. We'll look at the report. So not less than one special education teacher, or where appropriate, not less than one special education provider of such child. And four, yeah, a representative of the local educational agency, of the LEA. There it is. The agency being MUSD or Madera County Superintendent of Schools. We gotta have a representative, because that's the person, the decision-making authority. And one is qualified to provide or supervise the provision of special design instruction to meet the unique needs of children with disabilities. And two is knowledgeable about the general education curriculum. And three is knowledgeable about the availability of resources of the local education. You see why this combination of personnel need to be there? We need to have someone that knows about gen ed teaching. We need to have a special education teacher, because they have a little different views. We need to have an administrator that can make decisions, and someone that could be qualified to supervise this design instruction, and is knowledgeable about the availability of resources. We want to have that person there, because is there resources that we can add to this IEP document and to the plan and the program, so that this child can have his needs met. So that's one piece that's very important. So the team, it continues. An individual who can interpret the instructional implications of the evaluation results. Usually it's a psychologist that's there, who may be a member of the team described in clause 2 through 6. At the discretion of the parent or the agency, other individuals who have knowledge or special expertise regarding the child, including related services, personnel as appropriate, and whenever appropriate, a child with a disability. I always ask the parent, let's not bring the child with a disability in, because they're going to be saying some things that the child you may not want the child to hear. Unless the child already is of age that he can make his own decisions, and parent believes that it's fine to have him there, then that's fine. I've had a couple there. But this one here is other individuals who may have knowledge or special expertise. And I see these people when I come. There's the ABA therapist, there's the supervisor for the ABA therapist, and I'm there. I have a little bit of knowledge and special expertise. So parent can bring anyone that she thinks that either can contribute or has knowledge of a disability or of her child. So that's always good to know. All right, so here we are. Remember, we went over, and for those of you that are joining that have not been here before, I'm going to do a real quick pass through. How did we find the section 1414D IA1 or I, small I? Individualized educational program. Remember, guys, those of you that have been with me a couple of weeks already, we went through that, and we're going to do that just briefly because I want to know, and I want others to know that how can we get there? How did I get there to put it on this PowerPoint? And I think the more that we try or the more that you see it, the more we're going to be able to do that. So let me, excuse me, a little bit of water. Let's get there. And remember, I'm not an expert at technology, but bear with me. So I am going to stop sharing. Now I get to see everyone that's here. Oh my goodness. Actually, not too many want to be seen. And let's share the screen again. This time, we're going to share the statute and regulations. So how did we get to this one point? All right. You are screen sharing. All right. Remember, here it is. I'm seeing this on my side, the PowerPoint. I'm not sure you are, but so section 1414D1A1. So this is IDEA, the Department of Education in California has this site, and it's called IDEA, the law, and here we can view the statute. So let's view the statute. Follow along. So here we go. So assistance for children with disabilities, we want to click there. And then we want to find individualized educational programs. We want to click here. Remember, 1414. So now it goes over a lot of things about special education, but we're looking for 1414D. So let's find D. There's A. There's B. No, there's B. There's C. And there's D. Individual educational programs. And we said it was what? D1. So there's 1. And there's A. And then there's I in general. This is where I got it. Look, the term means a written statement, and we're going to go over that term, means a written statement for each child with a disability. So basically, the way I did it here is I looked for it. I already knew. I remember, guys, I have all this in memory already. I have knowledge of it. So what I did, I clicked on this I, and it gave me that code. See it right there? Oops. So if I'm writing a due process complaint and I want to talk about IEP and what the portion and components of the IEP are, then I want to, and I'll click, and here we go. If I find it and I do that, use that citation, this one right here. So I'll show you that again. Okay, so just go back, going back and going back. So here it is, right here, educational programs and educational placement, but there's a lot of stuff there. Okay, that's how I was able to quote and cite this. So let me go back to the screen sharing. Okay. All right. And let's go back. Hey, I'm getting better at this. You noticing? Yeah, Kaylee goes, yeah, I get it. I see it. Okay. All right, here we go. IEP. In general, the term individualized, and I apologize for small letters because when you put so much in there, it just automatically shrinks it. Okay. Or IEP means a written statement for each child with a disability that is developed, reviewed, and revised in accordance with this section and includes I or L, a statement of the child's present levels of academic achievement and functional performance, including, and what I'm going to do in a little bit I'm going to review this stuff, but then we're going to actually go into an IEP document. I have it prepared. But just keep these things in mind. Double A, how the child's disability affects the child's involvement and progress in the general education curriculum. Double B, for preschool children as appropriate, how the disability affects the child's participation in appropriate activities. And double C, for children with disabilities who take alternate assessments aligned to alternate achievement standards, a description of benchmarks or short-term objectives. Now, that term right there, short-term objectives, I had a debate with school staff that they didn't need to put short-term objectives because they weren't taking assessments that were out of the alignment of standards. Kind of threw me off, but in general, the rule says they have to put short-term objectives. Why? Because parent needs to know where the student is meeting those short-term objectives, and that way they know that the progress is happening or is not happening. But that still says it there. Okay. So continued. 2, a statement of measurable annual goals, including academic and functional goals designed to, double A, meet the child's needs that result from the child's disability to enable the child to be involved in and make progress in the general education curriculum. And double B, meet each of the child's other educational needs that result from the child's disability. All right. Continued. 3, a description of how the child's progress towards meeting the annual goals described in subclause 2 will be measured, and when periodic reports on the progress the child is making toward meeting the annual goals, such as through the use of quarterly or other periodic reports, concurrent with the issuance of report cards, will be provided. A statement of the special education related services, there's related services, guys, and supplementary aids and services based on peer-reviewed research to the extent practicable to be provided to the child or on behalf of the child, and a statement of program modifications and supports for school personnel that will be provided for the child. Remember, I'm going to go through this and then we're going to break down the IEP document. Double A, to advance appropriately towards attaining the annual goals. Double B, to be involved in and make progress in the general education curriculum accordance with subclause I and to participate in extracurricular and non-academic achievements. And double C, to be educated and participated with other children with disabilities and non-disabled children in the activities described in this paragraph. 5, an explanation of the extent, if any, to which the child will not participate with non-disabled children in the regular class and in the activities described in subclause 4 double C. And 6, a statement of any individual appropriate accommodations that are necessary to measure the academic achievement and functional performance of the child on state and district-wide assessments consistent with sections 1412A, 16A of this title. And I'll invite you to go ahead and research that if you like. And double B, if the IEP team determines that the child shall take an alternative assessment on a particular state or district-wide assessment of student achievement, a statement of why, double A, double R, double capital A, the child cannot participate in the regular assessment, and the capital double B, the particular alternative assessment selected is appropriate for the child. All right. Here we go. So 7, the projected date for the beginning of the services and modifications described in subclause 4, and the anticipated frequency, location, and duration of these services and modifications. And 8, beginning not later than the first IEP to be in effect when the child is 16 and updated annually thereafter. I'm trying to go fast because I want to get to this really important stuff. Small AA, appropriate measurable post-secondary goals based on age-appropriate transition assessment related to training, education. By the way, there is a transition IEP. There should be a transition IEP when the child transitions into middle school to high school and from high school on, if he decides to go to college. So they have to have, but the problem is in the transition services, they only put like, it's gonna apply for a driver license, is gonna go look for a job, stuff like that. But I tell parents that through the Department of Rehabilitation, they can also help with providing more services other than what the school just generally does. So beginning not later than 1 year before the child reaches the age of majority, here it is, a statement that the child has been informed of the child's rights on this chapter, if any, that will transfer to the child on reaching the age of majority. So this is where they tell them, well, now you can sign on your own, now you can attend on your own. And usually parents, for moderate to severe disabled children, they don't want to hear that because you're trying to tell them, you're not in charge of your child anymore. But, come on, I always tell them, don't make those comments. Please don't make those comments. It doesn't make the parents feel well anyway. All right, we got to this really neat portion that everybody's been waiting. I can tell in the reactions. All right, what you got, Dr. Padron? Let me see what you got, right? Okay, so let me stop sharing and let's get to that portion. And I'm gonna share. Oh, and I needed to, okay, I'll just disregard that. What I'm gonna do is, let me see. Actually, this is the one right there. Okay. So can everybody see this redacted IEP document? It doesn't look very good, huh? It's kind of messy. Let me move this over to where I'm at. All right. So I've had several of these documents. I just thought about something, but I had that I've worked on, but this is a really recent one. Now, if I made a mistake and I left some type of identifier in here, put it in the chat for me or a personal message, but I tried really hard to redact any identifying information about a student or parent, okay? So if I did that, make that mistake, let me know and I will correct it for the future. Okay, so here it is. This is the document. This is the IEP plan, the IEP program, and this is the document that we call the plan. Now, any of you remember all those things I read right now, what an IEP document should have? I'm going to try to stop and describe some of those things that I have in my memory of what an IEP document should have. And those of you that attend IEP meetings with me, you're going to see why, when they're going over this document, why I interject, why I this, why I say all this stuff. And I know they know me for talking a lot, so that's fine. Someone's got to do it for the parent, right? And the student. Okay, so here we go. This is demographics. We know that. Where they live, their cell phone, the accountability, district of accountability, the resident school. But then it gets into a description of what is the disability. Primary here, it says autism. And I've highlighted some areas so it could kind of stand out. And secondary speech and language impairment. So remember that there's supposed to be something that describes how the disability affects the progress in their education curriculum. It says significantly delay in adaptive and cognitive abilities make it difficult for him to access general education curriculum. His delays in articulation and language skills also negatively impact his ability to access general education curriculum. That has a lot of those points that I was talking about. It talks about how it affects his disability. His disability affects the access to the general curriculum, meaning that what is it that affects it? Adaptive and cognitive abilities make it difficult. All right. Next one. Remember, it said it has to list present levels of academic achievement and functional performance. That was one of the main points. So they have to talk about the strengths. I'm not going to go over each one of them. And then parent input and concerns relevant to educational progress. This part, I do have to say something. I always tell parents right before the meeting, if you see me kind of, I think Dominic, one of the persons that we had, I called parent out and I was talking to parent and you were looking, okay, when is he coming and stuff like that. Well, I was telling parent, when they talk about input and concerns, I was telling her, say everything that you feel that you're concerned about your child, everything. Because what ends up happening, you get a sentence like this. Mother had concerns with identifying letters in his name. This document is like the Bible, it's like you gotta say, and if I notice school districts, they'll write one or two sentences, but if the parent went on, like some of our parents, I tell them go on and on, they'll put it in the notes, in the meeting notes. So I always check that because I say, the parent said way more than that. And sure enough, it's in the notes sometimes. Sometimes they don't add it. Okay. So we have to make sure, because the reason I'm saying is because I had a case where the parent had said all kinds of things about, the progress, where there was no progress, the parts that the student lacked, and it's all kinds. Well, the judge caught on to that. And the judge said, according to parents' concerns in the IEP document, and described it in the decision, because we want the judge to know the parent brought up a lot of concerns. The fact that they didn't document it properly is another, it's probably a procedural violation. Okay. All right. So remember the English language arts, the balanced assessment, you're gonna have, and then right here, overall math, and then the California alternative assessment. That's the one that sometimes most of our children, our students take, or they take the ALPAC. So these are the testing, like you remember the SAT and stuff like that we had to take years ago. This is what kind of says where they're at. All right. Alternative English language proficiency. Now we know that a lot of Spanish speakers, they're learning English. They're English learners, and then it said you have to describe, and they have this hearing date, vision date. In this particular one, they didn't mark it. A lot of times it's important for me because if they have a vision impairment, they can't read that well. So right away that tells me, okay, they're gonna have issues with reading. Hearing as well, audio, they have audiology issues. So that tells us a lot as well. So remember it said that they had to have pre-academic and functional skills. This is where they describe that. In this case, he was able to identify capital letters, A, C, D, Y, and Z, only those, or else they would have listed all the others. That tells me a lot. Well, it tells me that from the beginning that this student is young and is learning the alphabets. So communication development. It's currently using a picture exchange communication book. When I see that, I know that later on they're going to say that the child might need a technology device, because I see this picture exchange communication book. And I've been dealing with this a lot, the PECS book, quite a bit with students with autism. And I make sure I try to ask for more. And they say, well, the student can't use a technology device right now because he's too young, and they give all this thing. Well, recently, when we went to this one, we made sure that they got the iPad going home, and with the technology involved for speaking. Okay, so gross fine motor development. They got to put something in there. Social emotional behavior. A lot of times our students have this. It says, and squeeze hand when he is frustrated. Vocational. They want to talk about will participate in extended school year. So let me tell you about extended school year because it might come up later. Extended school year used to be summer school, and now it's for kids that children that they forget, they can't grasp, or they lose the academics. Okay, academic goals, functioning, and in order to receive benefits, this is what it has. Okay, I want to go a little bit faster because I'm running out of time. So here it is, assistive technology device. Remember when I said, okay, I think I'm gonna see that? Sure enough. And then it has to have, so we skip through here. Does his behavior impede his learning of others? I always look at that because if he does impede, that means he has some type of behavioral issues, and he'll have a behavioral goal as part of the IEP, or they'll have a behavior intervention plan. Believe you me, I've seen behavior intervention plans as early as kindergarten. Believe you me, they even try to expel kids in kindergarten. Okay, so here are the goals. This is the main piece that I needed to show you. All right, so here it says, remember it said that the goal had to be based upon his needs, baseline, and the goal needs to be measurable. And here it says as measured by. That's a good one. So a receptive language as measured by. When I look at that and I see, okay, at least they have a way of measuring. Okay, joint attention. In response to visual and verbal stimuli as measured by SLP, okay. And then I have a comment there. It says, how will he learn to meet all these goals? What will he be taught, or just visual or verbal stimuli? And I think I asked a question about that. What will he what will he be taught? So it says, when given verbal or gestural cues, a student will respond to bids for joint attention. To me, it's like, okay, something's missing. It needs more. Okay. So here's one. The reason, when given an upper or lowercase letter to match, so it's letter identification, and also starting when and ending when. So it, right here, it doesn't say the date is going to start. And right here, it doesn't have, guess what? How is it going to be measured? It says with 80% accuracy and 4 out of 5 opportunities. And if it's not measurable, this goal is not good. That's a procedural violation, and it possibly can be a substantive violation. Next one. Number identification. Will comply with a request with 80% accuracy and 4 out of 5 opportunities. Okay, what happened there? It's not measurable. How are they going to measure? How is parent going to know? Short-term objectives are inconsistent. How are parents going to know here if he's meeting short-term objectives if we don't even know how it's going to be measured? Next one. Same thing. What's the comment? How and who will measure this goal? So I've already 2 or 3 goals that are not measurable. That constitutes a procedure violation that now is a substantive violation. How do I know? I'll show you in a little bit. Right here, place letters in the correct order when a Velcro name chart is presented to them. Without knowing any more, how is the student going to be able to accomplish this? All right. So, okay. And then, of course, here's other supports, program modifications. Here, the related services. So I wanted to show you this related services bit because there's a lot more that can be provided for the student than we normally hear. How do I know that? Let me show you. Let me share this document with you. Okay. Special ed related services options. Here's the code.
Educacion.
Huh?
You just put it,
What?
you minimized it, I think.
No. Oh. Yeah, it's not sharing. Sorry about that, guys. Let me put it on the actual latest services here. Oh, sorry. Share. It's still not sharing, Alfonso. Oh, yeah, there it is. Okay. Related services. There's the actual code for all these things. We know that we can get speech and language therapy, adapted physical ed. We dealt with that this week as well. Assistive technology, occupational therapy, physical therapy, individual counseling, all these social work services, we can get that as well. Psychological service, behavior intervention service. Here's some that we don't. Specialized vision service, audiological services. Here's one that I am going to begin to push. College awareness preparation, travel for training, other transition. Where are you? Recreational services for children with special needs. There was one here. Interpreter services. Okay, I think this parent counseling, we never see that. We never get that. I'm going to share with this, when I share the PowerPoints with you guys, I'm going to share this list with you guys. So you can take a look at it. It's something really good that we can have in our arsenal, if that's how you call it. Okay. All right. Now, let me see. Let me go back to the training. Okay. I need to share the training. And there you go. Okay, redacted. Review the non-expedited decision student versus Party Unified School District. Here we go, guys. This is some of my work. And kind of follow along. We have two of them to look at in the next 10, 15 minutes. Okay. All right, let's start again. Stop sharing. And we are gonna look at maybe redacted. Let's go right here. Am I doing this right? Let me see. Okay. I know I didn't do that part, but now I have it ready. Okay, screen share. And here you are. Yeah. There it is. Okay. So I better look at mine on this side. So this was a decision for a parent on behalf of student against Party Unified School District. It was one of my early ones. It's 2016-08-0342. For me, the important part is 2016. That's the year that this decision was done. Okay, so the administrative law judge was Rebecca Frey, and I highlighted there, Alfonso Padron, parent advocate representing student. There was also two other advocates assisting me. And this is a public document, so if it has names, there's no problem. It doesn't have student's name at all. Carlos Gonzalez, he worked for the law firm that Veronica and Dominic, that the school, Madera County Superintendent of Schools, that Gilliard, that attorney works for the same law firm. And she actually was there, but he was running the show. And he lost this one to us. Okay. So, issues. Did Parlier commit a procedural violation resulting in a denial of a free appropriate publication to student by failing to, here's the topic of the day, developing measurable goals to address social skill deficit and off-task behaviors in students' individual educational programs after August 5th, 2014. All right. So that's the one that we're focusing on. What does it say? Oh, I highlighted this because we had talked about child fine, but I'm gonna leave it for another day. And then we have page number, okay, Summary of the decision. In his complaint, student contended party denied him a FAPE because his IEPs for the time period at issue did not contain measurable goals to address off-task behavior and social skills deficit. This decision finds that student was denied a free appropriate public education during the 2014-15, 2015-16 school year because he was not provided with measurable goals to address his off-task behaviors and social skills deficits. The IEPs that were proffered from August 14th through the date of filing did not contain specific measurable goals to address off-task behavior and social skills deficit because the IEPs in question failed to offer student a FAPE. Okay, so let's go to in 2013, September 2013 IEP. Now keep in mind, as I'm scrolling down, these are complex because it talks about the whole IEP, the evaluation, and it talks about the years of the IEPs. And I had to review every document, every piece. And the reason I'm smiling is because it takes a lot of time, but it pays off. It paid off for the student that I was able to be so focused on what were his needs. So briefly, I said student had deficits in reading and mathematics, very important. Beginning in kindergarten, although he was now beginning third grade. So he was behind since kindergarten, and then he was in third grade. So the behavior goal called for student to remain on task for one period with only one prompt. I want you guys to hear this. This goal was not measurable because it did not describe what constituted a prompt. Don't we see that all the time? One prompt, two prompts, three prompts, all the way up to 5 or 10. Now, this judge says, and I'm going to believe this judge because she knows what's up. She says that this goal was not measurable because it did not describe what constituted a prompt. So, guys, from here on, whenever we see with one or two prompts and they don't describe it, like sometimes it's like visual or verbal or stuff like that, it's too broad. Nor did it describe the length of a period. Student was not in class setting that had firm periods. Okay, the social skills goal contained no baseline. It called for him to demonstrate recognition of personal space of others and keep his hands to himself 80% of the time in 2 out of 3 sessions. This goal was not measurable due to the lack of a baseline, no definition of the length of a session, and no real clarity about what is meant by recognizing the personal space of others and keep his hands to himself. Check that out. No real clarity about what it meant, personal space. We all know what personal space is, right? I think that the judges want a descriptor. They want more description than just he keep his hands to himself. No, you want more. Okay, so that is very interesting because when I saw that, I was just jumping up and down because all of a sudden, we had a judge that was looking at this and giving us basically a heads up moving forward. So it was reported that student had met his social skills goal from the September 5th, 2013, which required him to keep hands to himself 80% of the time. It was also reported that he had met his on-task behavior goals, which required him to actively work on assignments with no more than one prompt each period. However, behavior was still a concern, and that the IEP reflected that I still needed to work on anger control. In other words, she caught him because they were saying, no, he's doing fine, his behavior's getting better, but then in the documentation, they said he still had behavior issues. So you can't have it both ways. So, okay. He, on May 14th, 2014, had neither an on-task behavior goal nor a social skills goal. This undermined the assertion that at the end of 2013-14 school year, that student met the on-task behavior goal in the IEP. Remember, guys, it'll say met the goal the previous year. We can scrutinize that. What do you mean met the goal if he still has the same issues, right? That kind of stuff. All right. Okay, now let me see. 13 and 15. Let me go to the really good stuff, which is down here, which is called legal conclusions. Now, I wanted to show you this because I've encountered Miss Kelly, Caitlin Kelly, and see how it's public document. She left Parlor Unified soon after this decision. She is now with Washington Union on the outskirts of Fresno. And the judge had a lot to say about her, and it wasn't all good. Okay, so she moved on. All right. I have that tendency to create that on at times. It's just okay. Okay, remember I told you that I sometimes don't want them to fix the goals when I'm there, depending, right? Depending if I know we're going to file a due process complaint, because here, in the documentation leading up to the decision, I actually had gone to an IEP meeting here. On August 25th, 2016, an IEP team meeting was held at students' new school with both mother and Mr. Padron in attendance. The functional behavior assessment report was reviewed and a new behavior intervention plan based on that report was presented. So the judge will also see you were involved in the case early on, and now you're trying to say that, that kind of stuff. She didn't do this, but she just mentioned that I had been involved with this student before we filed the complaint. All right. Legal conclusions. This is the good stuff here. It tells you this is what should happen, what should not happen. Let me go really fast. We talked about Rowley. Requirement for the goals. Here's the requirement that we just went over. Now I wanted to show you this part here. An IEP is evaluated in light of information available at the time it was developed. It is not judged in hindsight. So in other words, it's a snapshot, not a retrospective, meaning whatever happened that year, you can't say now, well, it's not any good because this year you can't do that because it's a snapshot of back then. So you can't in hindsight say, well, that one was no good. Wait. When you were there at the time, that's when you were supposed to say that. So it does talk about that. So failure to provide student with the current IEP. The district must implement only those portions to which the parent has agreed so as not to delay providing instruction and services to the child. Analysis. However, these goals were not measurable since the language in the on-task behavior goal was vague and the social skills goal had no baseline. So she goes over that over and over and says what happened and what were the issues and problems. So we won this case. And what did they have to do? Let's go to that. Apart from all kinds of stuff, the order was that the training, part of your special education staff shall receive training about how to draft measurable goals to address off-task behavior, social skill deficit. The training shall not be provided by any part of your employee or legal representative part of your, have to be someone from the outside. And we were the preventing party. Okay, great. But now let's see if we can get really quick to stop sharing. So I want to make sure I get this other one in. Just really quick because this one has a little bit less. Right here. Where are you? Here and right there. Okay. So here's another one of the cases that I was involved in. This was most recent. See right here, 2019. That was the year. So that's like 4 years ago. I'm gonna highlight this at another time, because it's concerning bullying, and it's concerning suicide ideation, and the school did not catch that, and the judge just let them have it. But they also talked about, so here it says that I was the advocate assisting parent, and they had Deanne Hasenpour. She's one of the F3 Law is the law firm, a really big law firm. So I'm very familiar with all these. So page 6 and 7, let's find that real quick. So Golden Plains, April 2018 summary of decision. Multidisciplinary evaluation failed to assess students' social, emotional, behavioral needs in accordance with its March 28 assessment plan. And then additionally, Golden Plains failing to develop legally compliant reading goals for April 2017 annual IEP. This denies student a fate until his next IEP in April 2018. So here it is, annual goals. Students IEP team identified his area of need as reading fluency and comprehension, reading expression, and math problem solving. The team developed four annual academic goals. The goals themselves did not include information on students' baseline level of functioning in the areas targeted. However, students IEP included this information in the statement in his present academic levels. These were not required. A student was not taking alternative assessments. Students' two reading goals called for him to determine the meaning of words and phrases as used in a text and to determine the central idea of a text in 3 out of 5 trials with 70% accuracy by April 2018 as measured by word samples. These goals failed to specify the reading level of the text student was required to read, and therefore did not provide a basis with which to compare his progress a year later. Although the 2016 annual progress reports noted some progress, students' 5th grade reading level as identified in the 2017 IEP were identical to those reflected in 2016. Golden Plains failed to develop a goal that would measure students' progress in the area of reading fluency, one of his identified needs. Golden Plains failed to develop a measurable reading fluency goal. Okay, you get the drift. Okay, so at the end, we also got training, and then he also got psychological services because this case was just really big. All right, stop sharing. Okay, I could see some people. All right, and I think I'll just go ahead and put share, just so that you see this one. IEP, the end. Questions? All right. Okay, let me hear some questions. I know there's been some chat going on, but I don't know what's going on with the chat. I